Representation matters a lot in media, as it represents the diversity of people that exist in real life. Everybody has something, no matter who they are, that separates them from the general mass consensus of people. This is more of a personal thing, but I have a stutter. A pretty noticeable one, to be honest with you. It's not really shown in my past videos because they're all scripted, and I do multiple on top of multiple takes for a lot of things I write for YouTube. Especially when I make a really long video, and recording takes longer than the actual editing process when it should be the other way around, but I digress. It's something I never really talked about in any of my other videos I've made before, but it's a pretty big part of me, as it's something I've had to live with for pretty much my entire life. It's been with me since I was a little kid. You can kind of notice it on some of my inflections in my recordings and from live footage, especially from the White Illumination video where it was me and Christian just straight playing the game. And something I've thought more and more about as I've gotten older is, well, representation in media. Representation is a beautiful thing, as I've said before, but it lets people see that there's more to humanity than what's commonly shown. I exist, you exist, we all have things within ourselves that separate us from the coalesced mold that makes up people. And something I've realized is that quote-unquote invisible disabilities are barely ever discussed in fiction or in TV, films, games that aren't things like autism or various learning disabilities. Believe me bro, I've got ADHD as well. I can count on one hand the amount of times I've seen a character with a speech disability shown in a positive light. Which is kind of a sad thing to see with how much other people get shown in media. It's a great thing of course, but other outliers are pushed to the wayside. I've often thought about finding more characters in media that have something similar to me. And I finally found something that encapsulates part of what life is like with having a speech disability. And it's a short manga called Shino Can't Say Your Name by Shuzo Oshimi. To be quite honest with you, I haven't actually read a ton of Oshimi's works. Like I know The Flowers of Evil and Blood on the Tracks and stuff like that, but I haven't read them myself. I mean, I know he's a bit of a weird author, to say the least. Like, the only other thing I've read by him that isn't Shino Can't Say Her Name is this short story called Sweet Poolside, which I read in a sitting, finished it, thought, wow, that was really fucking weird, and put it back on my shelf. But I discovered Shino Can't Say Her Name one night, and intrigued by the concept, I gave it a quick read, and it touched me a lot, as it was something that related to me personally. The title of the story, Shino Can't Say Her Name, pretty much sums up what the story is about. Shino can't say her name. She's locked behind her own voice. She can't even say the word that defines her without stuttering. It explores the feelings and struggles she goes with in life having a stutter, how people react to her stutter, and how she copes with the constant fear of what will happen when she tries to open up her mouth. The story starts on the first day of high school, a pretty formative time for most people's life. High school is a time where you can to an extent reset yourself, or reimagine a part of yourself you couldn't in middle school. It's a new chance to start on the right foot. A stupid class introduction, something that takes seconds, wouldn't be on the minds of anyone really, besides for Shino. She spends the whole night practicing for the perfect introduction. To say her name, have it flow out, and sit back down and let the wave of anxiety for the day pass by her. An introduction holds more importance to her as it's a make or break moment for how people will see her. She'll either speak for a moment and fade right as she was into the background, or fall right on her face and become the center of attention as the words become choked and held back in her own mouth. The world becomes an unfocused mess as she prepares herself to speak. It all phases out of her view. I really like this depiction of how she feels, as it's something I felt a lot in school, especially whenever it was my turn to speak in class. Sure, it's dramatized, but the emotions there are genuine. I specifically remember countless times in school over the years where my body would just be pounding with nervousness over saying something incredibly simple. It's finally Shino's turn. She goes to open up her mouth, and nothing comes out. Not a single word. She begins to panic as the whole entire class's attention is now fully turned to her. She begins again, and words do escape her mouth, but she gets caught on the O sound of her last name, Oshima, repeating it over and over again. And to her mortification, the entire class begins to laugh at her, not understanding the situation. The teacher tells her to give it a rest and sit back down. During her entire time trying to say her name, she apologizes over and over again, which is something I would think a lot of people with a stutter often end up doing. Apologizing for a problem they can't help, something even they don't want to happen. But if you think about it, what's there to apologize for really? It's just a part of who we are. Things pass but nothing really changes for Shino. She can't speak, and every time she tries to, it just embarrasses her more and more. Her teacher tries to encourage her, but it doesn't really do much. All of this comes to a head when she's on her way home for the day, and openly hears one of her classmates, Kikuchi, mocking her for how she speaks. And as you can imagine, she doesn't feel really good when seeing this. It makes her draw back into her shell even more. In her frustration, she accidentally knocks a bike over, causing all of them on the rack to topple over, startling the girl that was on her way to leave. Shino tries to do her best in communicating back to her, but like always, her words slip and the annoyed girl simply bikes past her with indifference. The next day, Shino eating lunch by herself, finds her again in a quiet place around the school where no one else is around. Here we're properly introduced to her. Her name is Kayo. She starts singing to herself and believes her mouth is one of the most grating sounds ever. Or like imagine the most grating sound ever, because you can't actually hear what she's singing. But judging by the text, it's probably pretty fucking awful. Shino begins to hold back laughter as the girl suddenly realizes her presence and turns beet red. After the initial confrontation, however, the two eventually become friends, sharing an awkward friendship and the related notion of being two outcasts. One for the inability to speak, and the other having the inability to sing. Two vocal problems on opposite sides of the spectrum. Shino gets introduced to Kayo's main passion, guitar and just music in general. But the only issue holding her back is her nails on a chalkboard voice. This sets up an interesting parallel between her and Shino. Sure, Kayo can speak normally and communicate, but is stunted completely in expressing her art, vocalizing what she thinks and feels. She's unable to do so with her terrible singing voice. To her, like Shino, this is a complete blemish on her life. It's an inability to communicate what's important to her. Her insecurities are revealed fully in two instances. When she first shows Shino her voice, Shino giggles at it, causing her to freak out and throw her guitar on the floor. The second is when Shino bumps into Kayo getting bullied by her old middle school friends, in which they jokingly ask her to go to karaoke with them, knowing how awful her voice is. Shino tries to drag Kayo out of the confrontation, but only freaks herself out more. After they walk out of the bookstore, Shino berates herself again for laughing at Kayo earlier, apologizing over and over again. Kayo interrupts her by simply asking if Shino can sing. As it turns out, Shino can sing perfectly normal, uninterrupted by her stutter. So, Kayo asks her if they want to form a group. Singing normally is actually something that's really common with people who stutter. I can sing perfectly fine as it has a rhythm you can follow with your voice. Now, is my voice pretty? That's up for debate. But what happens a lot in speech therapy is the idea of rhythm, having a physical or mental way to follow to have your words flow easier. It's also partly as well due to singing and speaking being processed differently in our brains. The entire concept of having a stutter is due to your brain being wired differently for speech. It all goes back to how our brains process and relay information. Shino's completely terrified over the concept of singing to a crowd, however, as every step she's tried to make so far has blown up in her face. Kayo forcibly pushes her out of her comfort zone to sing with her in the street, in a way to make her get over her stage fright. And as it turns out, Shino's voice is solid. I mean, it's conveyed through text to be solid, with this cool-ass fancy font, but to everyone's surprise, her voice is clear and concise. Her voice, for the first time, makes it off the ground into a steady stream as she follows Kayo's notes, only for it to come spiraling back down to the ground, like all the times before when Kikuchi, the boy who Shino saw openly mock her stutter, rolls by on his bike. Shino becomes so lost within herself upon seeing him talk to her, that she freaks out and runs away from the interaction. The next day in class, Shino tries to apologize to Kayo for ditching her yesterday, but is stopped outright with Kayo giving her praise for her voice, that she was actually good at something, that her voice and the way that she talks, finally for the first time wasn't a mistake, but something that was valued. I think vocal disabilities are really looked over as they're viewed as minor differences. On paper, sure they're minor, they don't debilitate us physically and we can do tasks like any other normal person. But one of the most important things to any human being is communication and connection. We need social interaction, we need bonds with other people, it's just the way that we work. And to go through life in a constant state of disarray for how you express your feelings and thoughts is just really frustrating, man. People view talking and conversing as a really easy thing. Well, okay, no it isn't. Social anxiety is completely real, but just the concept of not having the fear your voice will completely fail you is foreign to me. That your face won't get stuck and contort to something weird. That the words inside your own mouth won't feel stuck right at the end of your throat. This burgeoning sense of newfound confidence in Shino is brought down yet again by Kikuchi, who asks her and Kayo if he can join their band as well. He shows off his tambourine skills, which, side note, in a live setting, do tambourines even do much? Like, I see, like, Liam Gallagher do the tambourine thing on old Oasis live recordings, and I've always wondered if, like, anybody can actually fucking hear his tambourine over, like, the gigantic wall of guitar feedback. Just a random thought I've wondered about. Kayo finds it funny and asks Shino if she's cool with it, with Shino begrudgingly saying yes to him becoming part of her band. During the walk home with Kikuchi and Kayo, Shino feels a sense of detachment from the other two, and like always, tries to voice her thoughts, but is shut down by her own mouth. Due to her uncomfortability of being with him, she's unable to sing during practice because of her nervousness, which causes her to break down and run away from the two. Shino and Kayo have an argument outside of her house where Shino's reduced to writing her words on dirt because her voice isn't working at all. She expresses her regret with ever meeting Kayo and Kikuchi and how even from the start, she should have just kept to herself. This fallout leaves Shino in a state of complete disarray after the events that happened. Her mother even tries to convince her to go to hypnotherapy to cure her stutter, which is like really dumb, but we're gonna move on from that. She stays in this depressive mood all the way up to when she meets Kikuchi again by chance. He tries to patch things up with her, finally realizing his error, and how the words he says affects other people. He also tries to convince Shino into doing the school's music festival of Kaio, but the damage is done, and she rejects his apology and offer, and shoves him away. The days pass and the school festival still goes on, with just Kaio herself performing. And without Shino, her own way of communication is shut off, and she has to sing with her shrill voice. She still goes through with it and sings the song, to the dismay of everyone around her, but her singing stirs something within Shino and it forces her to finally come to the realization that her stutter and the way that she speaks is just a part of her. A small little piece that makes up who she is. And at the end of everything, it was just herself that pushed her back and made her feel weak. Her stutter and the way she talks is just a natural bone in her body. She yells at the top of her lungs what she thinks definitively. And finally, for the first time, she finds it within herself to say her name, clearly and proudly. She's a human being who thinks, feels, and speaks just as much as anybody else. Now, you would think this is where the story would conclude. Shino finally claims her name and stands changed from how she started, but it continues on with her life, flashing forward to her as a mother, struggling to say her name to confirm her for an appointment. And her kid comes in to say her name for her. Kind of drags it back down to earth in a sense. This part of herself will be with her for her whole life, even if she's changed and grown from who she was years ago. However, she accepts and welcomes the help of people in her life, which ties the story up in a more bittersweet tinge than a triumphant one. Part of what makes Shino Can't Say Her Name good is just how genuine it all seems. Shino's struggles and self-confidence just feel real, and it all comes from this real place of human vulnerability. I don't know if Shuzo Oshimi himself stutters or not. I've seen kind of conflicting stuff. There's not a lot of his personal stuff online, which is completely understandable, but either way, he really captured the feelings of having one. I barely ever see media about stutters or speech impediments, so I'm just happy something like this just exists. It's really cool seeing it written about in fiction. There's almost like actually nobody notable works that just have a speech impediment and are just normal people. An everyday story like this paints things in a much more realistic light. The people you pass on the street, normal looking or not, can and will always have something we can't help but not be. Now, is the story perfect? No, it isn't. Shino and Kaio's relationship is a troubled one, with Kaio in one or two instances being physically abusive with her, and she doesn't really get any repercussions for it. She isn't an incredibly good friend in some parts. I didn't really mention it because I thought it would break the flow of the video, but that's bad. I wish you didn't do that, just to be clear. Kikuchi is pretty one note, just being the class idiot essentially, and there's other minor things, but the story itself is really touching, to me at least. It has a lot of emotions stuffed into it for its incredibly short 11 chapter run. This is the part where I'm gonna get like really corny and preachy, or whatever, but if you do really have a disability, like not just a speech disability, never ever let it bleed into how you live, or how you yourself want to live your life. Sometimes it just fucking sucks. There have been innumerable, countless times where I think, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why can't I talk right? It's so incredibly frustrating having your words be held back in your own throat. But you have a voice. The way you talk and how you communicate to other people is the same level of importance and the same level of depth as anybody else. And having something like this can open a completely different way of how you perceive speech and language, and how others talk in general. What you think matters, even if you have trouble or can't at all convey it verbally. I don't want to see something as incredibly simple as you matter, because of course you do. But the self-doubt that comes with having something like this is a real thing, man. It's scary. A lot of people sort of see the face value point of a stutter just being a minor difference, but it hurts so many other pieces of yourself in your life. You just need to find the perseverance to keep on going. Find people who like you for who you are. Find love within yourself and find ways to express yourself for how you think in other ways than just verbally speaking. Connecting with others can be done in countless ways. I don't want to sound like the ending cutscene for MGS2 or anything, but I just wanted to say this, man. You're just as capable as anybody else. You're a human being. Don't forget that. And Shino, chin up. It's like what, like 2011? Once Carti drops Die Lit in like 2018, bro, your life's gonna improve. Trust. Shooter, long time, mileage, poke it out, flatbed freestyle, fell in love, no time in middle of the summer. That's all in the same album. Like, bro, that's crazy.